Today, this episode is not just another analysis or breakdown, it's a tribute. After 60 years at the helm of one of the most successful companies in the world, Warren Buffett has stepped down as the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. He leaves behind not only a trillion-dollar giant, but a way of thinking about money, business, and life that has shaped generations of investors. Buffett didn't just teach how people to invest, he taught them how to be, how to value integrity over greed, people over profits, and character over quarterly numbers. In many ways, he protected the sanctity of investing from the excess of capitalism itself. So, in this episode, we will go back to where it all started, trace how he became the Warren Buffett, unpack the philosophy behind his method, and look briefly at what Berkshire might look like beyond him. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Junior Talk, the show where we unpack the latest in finance, business, technology, and everything in between. I'm your host, Siddhant. Let's get started. Warren Buffett's story begins in Omaha, Nebraska. He was born on August 30th, 1930, just months after the 1929 stock market crash that led into the Great Depression. The world around him was fragile, uncertain, and deeply shaped by financial pain. Despite that backdrop, Buffett often said that he had about as good a start in life as anyone could hope for. He called it winning the ovarian lottery, blessed with supportive parents, a stable home, siblings he loved, and an environment that encouraged curiosity and effort. His father, Howard Buffett, started out as a stock salesman during the Depression and later became a congressman in the US House of Congress. His mother, Leila, was a housemaker. From early on, Warren was drawn to business the way some kids are drawn to sports. He sold Coca Cola in the summers, ran a pinball machine business, delivered newspapers, and even did a golf ball collecting hustle. He wasn't just making pocket money, he was learning how markets, customers, and incentives actually worked in real world, not in a textbook. During this period, he also went through a profound life altering lesson. At around 11 or 12, he made his first stock investment, 3 shares of City Service Preferred at $38 each, bought partly on behalf of his sister. The stocks quickly dropped to $27 per share and he panicked. When it crawled back up to 40, he sold it as soon as he can. Then he watched it soar past $200 per share. That single experience left a mark in him. It gave him 3 lessons that he would carry for the rest of his life. First, don't obsess over the entry price of a stock. Second, don't grab a small, quick profit if you are sacrificing a much larger payoff. Last and final, never play with other people's money unless you are really understanding what you are doing. These weren't just investing rules for young Warren. They were early signs of a mindset that cared about responsibility, long term thinking, and human cost of mistakes. As Buffett grew older, the curiosity didn't fade. He went to the University of Nebraska and then applied for an MBA at Harvard, but he got rejected. Most people would have taken that as a blow and applying for the next best business school. But Buffett took a different approach. He went to Columbia Business School in New York instead, for one reason. Benjamin Graham taught there. Graham, the author of The Intelligent Investor, was already a legend to Buffett by then. His book laid out a clear, disciplined way of thinking about stocks, not as a lottery ticket, but as a piece of business with intrinsic value in it. Graham's philosophy, which came to be known as value investing, focused on buying companies whose stock prices were lower than the true worth of their underlying assets and earning power. Buffett was fascinated by this. He absorbed it fully and initially practiced a very pure version of it. He described his early style as the cigarette butt approach, picking up companies so cheap and beaten down that they still had one last puff of value left. You buy them, squeeze that last puff, and move on. It was rational, number driven, and deeply Graham style. Buffett was so impressed with Graham that after Columbia, he offered to work for him for free. Eventually, he did get to work at Graham Newman, which was Ben Graham's investment firm. That period gave him not just skills but structure, a mental framework for making decisions under uncertainty. Around this period, he also met Susan, who would become Susan Buffett. They married in 1952 and later had three children. Warren often credited her with shaping his values, grounding his ambitions, and aligning his life with what truly mattered. Her death in 2004 was one of the most painful chapters in his life. He remained affected for a very long period after that incident. Later, he married Astrid Banks, a close family friend of both him and Susan. But the emotional and ethical compass Susan helped form stayed with him, one of which was philanthropy. Through 2022, Warren Buffett had given away $36 billion, mainly through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He also signed the Giving Pledge, which stated to give away 99% of his net worth after his death to various causes. This was some of the early qualities he admitted to be instilled by his late wife, which he cherished for a lifetime. So, there is no Batman without Robin. There is no Harvey Specter without Mike Ross. And there is no Warren Buffett without Charlie Munger. Back in Omaha, Buffett was introduced to Munger, a sharp, dry witted lawyer from California. Charlie was elder to Warren. At that time, Charlie was doing well in law, but Warren told him plainly that he was wasting his time and should get into business and investing. Charlie listened. He started his own investment partnership and gradually became Buffett's closest intellectual partner, confidant, and little BFF. Later, till his death in November 2023, he served as the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. If Benjamin Graham gave Buffett the foundation, Charlie Munger upgraded the architecture. Munger pushed Buffett to evolve away from buying just cheap companies and towards buying great companies, even if they weren't statistically dirt cheap. Instead of hunting for cigarette butts with one last puff, they started looking for businesses that could compound value for decades. Businesses so good, as Buffett famously put it, that an idiot can run them because sooner or later one will. Their partnership became the bedrock of what Berkshire would turn into. Not just a portfolio, but a philosophy expressed through a conglomerate. Now, let's talk about Berkshire itself. In the early 1960s, Buffett was running a small partnership managing about $7 million. During that period, he noticed a struggling textile company whose stock looked cheap, Berkshire Hathaway. He started buying shares, initially expecting a quick gain out of it. But a conflict over a tender offer price with management irritated him so much that he did something very unbuffett like. He bought control of the company and fired the CEO. Emotionally satisfying? Yes. Financially, he would later call it one of the worst mistakes of his career. The textile business was dying. The capital needed to keep afloat would never earn an adequate return. In hindsight, he estimated that the opportunity cost of committing to Berkshire's textile roots ran into hundreds of billions of dollars. But here's where his genius shows. He did something that nobody could have thought of at that time. He didn't stay stuck. Slowly and deliberately, he pivoted Berkshire from textile into something entirely different. The pivotal move was entering insurance. Insurance companies collect premiums today for claims they might pay tomorrow. In between, they hold what's called float, a large pool of cash that can be invested. Buffett realized that if you run a conservative insurance operations and invest the float intelligently, you create a powerful machine for compounding capital. So Berkshire began buying insurance outfits and then whole businesses. Some of them are Geico in insurance, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway, Seas Candies, Duracell, Dairy Queen, and big stock stakes in companies like Apple, Coca-Cola, American Express, and n number of other. Over time, Berkshire became a holding company with permanent capital. Buffett wasn't renting stocks for a quarter. He was partnering with businesses for decades. As he would say, if you weren't willing to own a stock for 10 years, don't even think about owning it for 10 minutes. So, if Buffett's philosophy had to be boiled down, a few core ideas keep reoccurring. First, the circle of competence. Buffett stayed relentlessly focused on businesses he understood deeply, like insurance, financial, consumer goods, and industrials. If something was outside that circle, especially complex, fast changing tech in earlier decades, he simply passed. He didn't chase every trend, he waited for what he understood. Second is the margin of safety, borrowed directly from Graham. No matter how confident you are, you always assume you could be wrong. So you demand for a buffer, a discount between price and estimated value, or a level of financial strength that protects you from bad surprises. Margin of safety isn't just about numbers, it's about humility in the face of uncertainty. Third is the idea of the punch card. Buffett once said that if every investor got a punch card with 20 punches for entire life, they would think very carefully before making each investment and they would probably do much better. His point: truly great ideas are rare. You don't need dozens of trades. You need few well understood, high conviction decisions. To him, share prices are the byproduct of a good business, not the other way around. And business itself is just a reflection of the people behind it. Warren Buffett is not just a great investor. He is also one of the greatest teachers in modern finance. His annual letters to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders became required reading across the investment world. Clear, witty, packed with lessons. They shape not only how investors think but how many professionals communicate with their own client. Many fund managers try to model their letter on his, thorough, honest, and written as if explaining things to a smart but non expert relative. He often guest lectured in classrooms, hosted students in Omaha, and answered thousands of questions at annual meetings. His style echoed a quote often attributed to Einstein: if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't even understand it yourself. Buffett lived that. He took complex financial concepts and stripped them down to their essence without ever sounding condescending. Despite being one of the richest people on the planet, his personal life stayed shockingly normal. Same house in Omaha, same city, same routine of driving himself to work, grabbing a simple breakfast, and reading for hours. No yachts, no extravagance, and no need to constantly display wealth. And that's exactly why so many people trusted him. He didn't just talk about long term thinking, fairness, and ethics, he embodied them year after year. In a world where capitalism often gets associated with greed, Buffett became proof that you can play the game at the highest level without it letting corrupt you. So, what happens now? From January 2026, Greg Abel will step in as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. Abel has been around the Berkshire ecosystem for years. He first entered the picture when Berkshire took a controlling stake in Mid American Energy back in 1999, where he was an executive. That company eventually became Berkshire Hathaway Energy, and Abel rose to CEO there. He later joined Berkshire board and took on the role of vice chairman of non-insurance operations, overseeing businesses in utilities, railroads, retail, and more. In other words, he has been effectively running a large chunk of Berkshire for quite some time. Abel now has the task of filling what are frankly enormous shoes. But this transition didn't happen overnight. It was planned, telegraphed, and gradually reinforced over years. Berkshire isn't just handed over to a stranger, it's being passed to someone who has absorbed the culture from the inside. Buffett will be missed in the role of CEO. His letters, his one liners at shareholder meetings, his childlike laugh, and his razor sharp observations about both business and life. But his real legacy isn't tied just to a title, it's tied to a mindset. Patience over panic, integrity over opportunism, and love for the art of investing more than the rewards it brings. In the end, the artist really did become bigger than the art. That's it for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It was my homage for the man who inspired me immensely. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did making it. If you did, please like, share, and follow on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you are listening. Thanks for tuning in. Take care and see you next time.